Today is August 1st, 2014. My name is Teresa Larson, and I am talking with two wonderful women. To the left is Georgia Benson Binkley, and to the right, Marjorie Ruth Spies Benson. And do I have your permission to talk to both of you today?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, we're going to start with Marge. And Marge, if you would be so kind as to give me your birth date. When and where were you born?
September 2nd, 1923. And I was born on our farm down in Messina, Iowa.
And you come from a pretty big family, don't you?
Yes.
Can you describe your family for me?
1 boy and 8 girls.
That is quite a big family. And tell me where you are in the birth order.
I'm 3rd from the youngest.
What did your father do? What was his specialty on the farm? What kind of farming did he do?
Well, he raised Hereford cattle and just the ordinary crops on the farm.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the chores that you and your siblings would have on the farm.
Well, we had to get the fuel for the cook stove, and
the milking.
Yeah, I never had to milk. Most all of my sisters did do milking because we milked a lot of cattle,
Mm-hmm.
and but I never had to milk because my fingernails were always too long, and the cow would kick and spill the milk. But
So
I had to clean and get the separator done.
That
Yeah.
is a task.
It is.
There are a few pieces to a crepe separator.
Yes, there is, and if you get one wrong, you're in deep trouble.
Now, with that many children, I'm guessing your mother had a lot of activity in the kitchen.
Yes, because as a rule, there were 13 to sit down for every meal. We had 2 hired men, and they ate with us also.
Mm-hmm.
So she cooked almost constantly, baked every day, cakes and pies and bread.
So, for young people watching this conversation, they may not realize that you just didn't go to the supermarket and picked up your bread.
No. No, in fact, practically all that was bought at the supermarket was flour and sugar and salt and pepper.
Tell me about what was a special treat that your mom might make. What would be something that you would look forward to?
Glorified rice.
You answered that so fast. What was that?
Well, it was rice, but she whipped cream and whipped in with the rice after it was cooked and cooled, and it was very good.
It does sound delicious, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And in those times, eating those high-calorie things was not a problem because you worked so hard.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, I always ask people of a certain age what it was like to grow up during the Depression. How did that affect you and your family?
Well, we raised practically everything we ate, and Dad butchered pork and beef, and there wasn't the money that was around. You know, everybody was in the same category, really. So
Now, but your father did have lots of business from other areas? I mean, he would have business people come from Chicago and Omaha because he did sell cattle, didn't
Yes,
he?
yes.
And did your father have any special beverages for those people who would come to visit?
Well, he did, he made what they called home brew. And so, and these people, these cattle buyers from like Chicago were really happy to have a bottle of home brew.
Did you ever taste it as a child?
I tasted it.
Yeah. One of the things that your family is particularly noted for is the fact that you and your sisters had a special act. And I'm actually going to ask Georgia, just very quickly here, when did you first hear that your mother had this special talent? Can you remember when you had first heard about those stories?
Basically since I could walk and sit, because they all talked about it, and Mother taught dancing for so many years, as did several of her sisters. And my grandparents always had pictures, billboards from their acts. And then when we would all gather at Grandma's, sometimes to not her permission, we would sneak up to the attic and look at all the old costumes because she kept them for years. And then all of a sudden she would hear our little pitter-patter of feet and yell up the steps to us that we were to come downstairs.
Okay. So we'll go back to your mother then for just a second to tell us a little bit more about that. So at about what age did you become a part of the Seven Spies Sisters dancing act?
I was 9 years old.
Now, even though these times were limited in terms of financial resources for some people, your mother and father they were dancers, right?
Yes.
And so they went to community dancing. It already started.
Yes.
So they probably cut a dashing couple.
They were good dancers, good ballroom dancers.
And so at about what age did you start taking some dancing lessons? Just roughly.
I was 8 or 9.
And so you were third from the bottom. So you had older sisters who were also taking dancing
Oh, yes,
lessons.
yes.
And where did you go to have those lessons?
To Des Moines.
That would have been kind of a fun thing to do. My gosh, you're doing chores, you're working on a farm, and you still have time to go to dancing lessons. That's an energetic family.
We were. Most of the places where we danced were like county fairs and state fairs, and we did dance in some night spots.
First of all, tell me about the act. What did you do? How did it start?
Well, my sister Ada was an acrobatic, and my dad one day just said, I think you all have rhythm, and let's just go to Des Moines and find a good dance teacher, and we did.
And how did the idea of there are lots of families that have children who take lessons, but the idea of making you a performance act, how did that come about?
Well, my mother's sister lived in Des Moines, and I think she had quite a little bit to do with getting us started into performing as an act. And the first year that we performed, it was with a band, an orchestra, Little Don Little. And then my mother decided that she could do the booking herself, and so she took over and we had broadsides made, and just, we danced a lot. it was mostly in the fall, about the first 6 weeks. You know, we'd do 4th of July celebrations and different things like that, but we performed a lot at the fairs.
About how long was your performance? Was it a half an hour performance, a 45-minute performance?
Oh, it would be at least, I'd say half an hour to 45 minutes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And several costume changes.
Oh, yeah. We had lots of costumes.
Did you dance on point? Did you do tap dance? Did you do girls doing ballroom dancing? All those sorts of techniques?
Well, 2 of the older sisters did ballroom dancing on the show. And my sister Mary Jane, just older than I, we did toe tap. And I did some solo tap, quite a little bit. And then my sister Georgia was the vocalist, and she sang a lot. And if she wasn't able to do her act because of her voice, then I had to do it. So it was fun. We had a great time.
And for about how many years did you do this?
Well, we started in 1931, I believe it was, and we did it till 42.
That's a long run by any measurement.
Yeah.
How did you get from one place to the other? I'm trying to picture how you get 7 girls, a lot of costumes, maybe a piano player from one place to the next.
Well, we pulled a trailer that had all the costumes in it, but we all rode in the car at the same time.
Now this is before
Of course,
seatbelts.
we're small. We were small then, and but it wasn't bad. We got along fine.
Now you need to picture it for me though. There's 2 seats in the car.
Yeah.
And there's 7 sisters.
Oh, we sat sideways. We all faced one direction in the car, in the back seat. So, yeah. So there was 5 of us lined up in the back seat. But then when we wanted to change positions, we all changed looking the other direction then. So.
And then one sat on Betty sat on Grandma's lap.
Yes.
And Georgia sat in between Grandma.
Yeah.
So there they were.
And
if the piano player came, she sat in the back with the other 5. Just squeezed a little tighter.
That taught coordination at an early level.
Yeah.
To switch
right.
You had to get along.
Yes.
I just have to ask, because anytime there's live performances, was there anything ever surprising that happened that wasn't choreographed that you didn't expect?
I just don't remember that there was.
Like the piano player started the wrong music, or?
No. I can't at the moment think of anything that went wrong.
You were one lucky performer then.
Yeah.
So I understand that you also had the opportunity you had billing with some famous people that viewers might easily recognize.
Yes. In fact, we were billed with Lawrence Welk, and
Excellent.
I got to lead Lawrence Welk's band when I was 9 years old, and I danced with him.
And where was that? Was that in Iowa?
No, it was in North Dakota.
In North Dakota.
Yeah.
Oh, what fun.
But we traveled Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, all over.
Now, even in your time, you were pretty well known. I believe that your mother went to New York to
Yes.
talk about your dancing act? Tell me
Mother
about
went
that.
to New York, and she was asked by Gabriel Heater to be on We the People show in New York to talk about her 7 dancing daughters.
Would this have been about like 1938 or so?
Yes, it was. It was
So it was
1938.
This is kind of in the middle of
Yeah.
this long time period
Yeah.
of you doing this. I believe you had the occasion to meet Andy Williams too.
Yes, the Williams brothers. And we were on the same billing with Frank Sinatra,
But what was his name back then?
Sharple.
Yeah.
Frank
Was it
Sharple.
Sinatra?
Oh, can you tell me a little bit about that? Georgie, you can join in there too if you want.
Well, when he first started out, he had Sharple as the last. I mean, that was his last name. But as he became more and more popular, whoever was promoting him didn't think that was a good name, so they changed to Sinatra. And of course, he became very famous. Yeah.
Now, you were dancing with your sisters during the Depression.
Yes.
So obviously the money helped your family out. Did you get to have an allowance from this money? Did any of the money go to
No.
the girls?
No,
It all went to
it just went
work
to
the farm. I mean, it was Depression days. Every little bit counted. And Mother's oldest sister, Muriel, taught school starting when she was 16. And her income, small that it was, went towards material to make the costumes and
Yes.
help pay for the dance lessons. She gave up all. I mean, that's what families did. That's how you survived. So.
It was your own community. I mean, it was your own community of support.
Sure,
Mhm.
sure.
And I'm sure young people today considering this are probably a little surprised you didn't at least get an allowance from that dancing.
No. No. The people of today, most of the kids of today want it to be just,
A little bit different,
Yeah.
huh? So, is there anything else you'd like to tell me about your sister dancing act that I haven't mentioned?
That was the biggest sister act.
yeah, we were billed as the largest all-sister dance review in the world.
And it was probably
and
pretty
to
close
this,
to the truth.
It was.
Mhm.
To this day, we have no recollection that ever was that many.
Mhm.
There's been close, but it's,
Yeah, quite a special troupe.
yep.
I'd like to get from your childhood to Ames, Iowa. And we'll probably make this a quicker trip maybe than it
Yeah.
actually was in real life. But your dad did sell his farm.
Yes,
And what happened then? It was 1941-ish or so?
yes.
Mhm.
The folks sold the farm and they moved to Anita. And that's where I met Carl.
Mhm. Your husband, Carl.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now then, you graduated though from Messina High
Yes,
School. Can
yes.
you tell me a little bit about that story?
Well, the folks were moving in February to Anita, and the superintendent of the school in Messina called my mother, and he said, your daughter Marjorie is a senior, going to be graduating, and I would really like her to stay in Messina and graduate down here. And Mother kind of hesitated a little bit. He said, she can live at our house. And she can just stay with us. And it'll be fine.
Because she was
Said
a
he-
student.
He said, she'll be salutatorian for sure, and maybe valedictorian. And so I would like her to be here.
That was very generous.
Yes.
And also, he had the image of his school system in mind because he wanted his
Sure.
best student to graduate. Yeah. So you got to Anita, but tell us a little bit about how you met your husband, Carl.
Well, my dad and my oldest sister's husband opened up a used car dealership and garage in Anita, and that's where Carl was born, of course. And so they had an open lot with a building on it where the used cars were, and so when I moved up there then, I went to the building where we were selling the used cars, and Carl walked in one day and he said, "Oh, I've been in here before, but I haven't seen you." Well, he saw my older sister that we looked quite a bit alike, and I said, "Well, I just graduated from high school, you know." And
Weren't you keeping the books?
oh yeah, I was keeping the books then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we met, and we've been together ever since, practically.
So you got married about 1943,
Mhm.
and you have kind of been connected with the car business ever since.
Yes,
You,
The
I think, yes. please
the
go ahead.
theater business, when Carl was discharged from the service, he had a medical discharge,
He was in the Marines.
and we run the theater in Anita, and then we had outside theaters that we put up the canvas and the screens. And,
Walk-ups.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
Oh, tell me about that. I don't know about this. What it's called a walk-up?
Walk-up.
Tell me about this.
Well, they would go to small little communities and there would be an empty lot. And there would be cement blocks, and then there would be big 8x4s that were the benches across them, and Dad strung canvas around the lot. And there was always a little building to put the projector in and the popcorn machine. And then Dad showed movies outside, so it was only good on
Yeah.
clear, nice nights. You didn't do it in the rain. But several little towns, that's how the theaters were back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
There was no inside building.
This is the first I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared
Yeah.
that story.
yeah,
So I guess I know you've always had a theatrical element to your life, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize that one.
yeah. Well, Carl was a movie projectionist for long.
Oh, since he was a kid.
Oh,
really.
yeah. Yeah, since he was a kid.
So
He was actually, after his father passed away, and he worked a lot of odd jobs, you know. He shined shoes, he carried papers, morning and evening papers,
In the
and
hardware store.
yeah,
Worked on a farm.
yeah,
Basically,
Just-
he supported himself from about age 13.
yeah.
He and his brother had a big garden and would walk around the neighborhood with a wagon selling fresh vegetables like a little farmer.
So in 1943, when you got married, there was the used car and the mechanic shop that you and Carl were involved with because of your whole family business. But you did stay in the auto business as well then.
Oh, yes.
And you eventually ended up, I think, in Emmitsburg,
Mhm.
and you had a nice business there. But
We went into the automobile business at Emmitsburg.
Mhm.
We were in the oil business in Minnesota.
gas stations for people.
Yes,
might-
yes.
Sinclair bulk oil and stations.
Yeah.
So you're in Emmitsburg, and the year is maybe, I don't know, 1969, 1970.
Mhm.
What happened in that time period?
Well, we had a very close friend that was in the automobile business, and Carl wanted to get into the business, so we were in Emmitsburg from 65 to 1970 in the car business. And then we heard about Ames opening up, needing, looking for someone to take over the Chevrolet business in Ames, and
Now this
so
would have
we
been
were-
the Allen Motor
yes, Alan. Yeah.
establishment that at that time was kind of where the public library is now.
It
Clifton
was.
Douglas, it's
Clifton
where
Douglas.
the new library is being built, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
So you heard about that. How did you hear about that? Or how do you get the word out? Or
well, we were looking at some dealerships in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We went over, and no, we didn't want to do that. I think we just wanted to get back to closer to our birthplaces or something. It just, and so when this came up in Ames, why we came down to look at it. And we didn't like the looks of it to begin with.
An old building, an
Oh.
old dealership. Fletcher Allen was more than ready to retire and had no one to take over his business, and it kind of gone downhill somewhat. So Mother was not impressed at all. Dad could see a little potential, but Mother just rolled her eyes.
They said, well, Fletcher said, well, would you make me an offer? Would you even consider making me an offer? And Carl, I guess he did say, well,
Lowballed him.
lowballed him, we'll think about it. But he said, well, go over on Main Street and have a cup of coffee. And so we walked over on Main Street, and we opened up the door and walked in, and this fellow said, hi, you're new, aren't you? I know what you're here for. And I thought, what? How could he know already? I mean, we hadn't been in town but 10 or 15 minutes. And I said to Carl, we're not going to take Ames, Iowa, because it's just,
Small town.
small town, and it's not,
Gossip travels too fast.
yes. And so we walked back across the street over to the dealership again, and opened up the door and walked in, and Fletcher said, well, you just bought this.
so you were kind of
we were, both of us, I think, are,
awestruck, shocked.
so we didn't know what we were going to do then. I guess we decided that we better try it, because after all, the man said,
Dad was a man of his word.
yeah,
It wasn't in writing yet, but he had made an offer verbally, and it was accepted.
yeah,
Now, I would like to point out at this point that Marge was an active business partner with Carl.
yes,
And so, not all women were active in the business community, but you were an
Yeah.
active partner. And it started with your bookkeeping way back in Anita, but you,
oh yeah,
but you throughout were
Oh, yeah.
active
yeah.
part of that.
Well, I was active all the time that we had the theaters,
Mhm.
you know, and I taught dancing all those years too.
And every business Dad was ever in, she was always the head bookkeeper.
Yeah,
And the accountant.
And not only the head bookkeeper, but I'm going to make an assumption, the chief advisor too. Georgia, what was it like? This is just kind of a sidebar. You had a mother who was very active in the business world. Did that impress you at all? Did you think that you appreciated it at that time?
I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. And I have 3 brothers, and the 4 of us were all raised to work. If you didn't have a reason to get up at 7 in the morning, even on weekends, my father would give you a reason. The boys could stack wood, I could scrub floors, whatever, because you didn't lay around in bed. And when I was in high school and Mother was teaching dancing on Saturday, I was expected to clean the house upstairs and make the lunches and start preparing something for dinner, and the boys would do the yard work and help Dad with whatever.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was always a little jealous that my girlfriends would walk by the window going into town for lunch, and I wouldn't get to go. But later, when I was in college and I could cook, and none of them could or knew how to do their laundry, they always came to me. They wanted to come to have me do these things for them, and then I really started to appreciate how much my parents had taught me.
Well, I just wanted to take that sidebar because not all women of Marge's generation were that active in business.
No.
Or took that much
Yeah.
interest in doing it. So you were definitely a very important part of that. So coming back to Ames then, you were going to be a full partner in making this business that had not maybe prospered as much in recent years big. What were some of your ideas? What were some of the things that you guys wanted to do?
Well, we got the place cleaned up to begin with because the dealership itself was really run down. And actually the parts man had been there a long time, and he was interested in definitely staying. And so we all worked to get it going real good, and we started progressing, and it just made money ever since. But we worked hard and put in a lot of time.
Community though too.
Oh, yes.
One of the strategies of good business people at that time was to support the people in the community.
Oh yeah. So you
did your business in Ames.
Yeah.
You did business with people that you wanted to come.
That's
to
right.
with you.
That's right.
Now I had a conversation with Ed Gagne before I came to talk to you today.
Oh.
And thousands of people know the name Benson Motors because of a very important promotion, which was Shoot 5 for 5.
Yes, yes.
And Ed tells me that he had told the athletic department he had this idea for promotion, and he would just like take any old car. But he went to Benson Motors, and that you were there with Carl, and he was asking if you'd put a car up, but it was you who insisted that it be a new car.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Did you have a flicker of an idea that this was going to be a big promotion?
Well, I thought it would be, yes. Yes. You have to get your name out in public to get going, and So let's just summarize this little promotion for people who might not know it. At the halftime at Iowa State University men's basketball games, Ed Gagne would come out, and he was the one who at the athletic department had this idea. Yeah.
And somebody selected from the crowd could not. It was a seat assignment, and they couldn't shift it. It was a seat assignment.
Yeah.
And that
Drawn
person,
at random.
Drawn at random. And that person would come down and shoot baskets from 5 locations.
Yes.
Like roughly the free throw distance.
Yes.
Okay. So Ed Gagne would come out and say, "Hi, everybody." And everybody would say,
"Hi, Ed."
Even now, Georgia responded exactly. And he would list off the prize, and he said, if you...
But you forgot something.
Okay, go ahead.
He would say, first, Benson Motors, and the crowd would yell back, Benson Motors.
Yes.
Then he would say, "Hi, everyone." He
Yeah.
would say, "Hi, Ed." And then he would start in with his spiel and call the number. And so years later, when Johnny Orr came and would come walking out, that would be kind of the same response that Benson Motors got, only it was, "Hi, Johnny." And the whole crowd got involved. So even now, and that happened years ago, you can say, oh, you know, my folks with Benson Motors, or who are you? And you would relay Benson Motors, and they would go, Benson Motors, you know, just like they used to do at the games.
Ed said it got started in 1984.
Okay.
And that it was within the first 2 games that the student body, Ed had a rhythmic way of saying it. And the
Uh-huh.
car from Benson
Benson Motors, yep,
And
yep,
when you have an entire student body saying
yeah,
that,
yeah.
what kind of price can you put on that for promotion?
Priceless.
Just priceless, it is.
Now,
Yeah.
this went on, I think I read a newspaper article, and your son Kurt was talking about roughly 20 years, we'll say, it
Yeah.
went on. So that's a long run. Tell me a little bit about, there was one day when someone won the
Yes,
prize.
yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, our son Bob was the only Benson at the game that night. And of course, he had to go down on the floor with the man that shot all 5 free throws. And he had been in Ames, but I don't know, he was
He was on a sabbatical leave.
Sabbatical
from the
leave,
university.
The
yes,
person who was shooting
yes,
the baskets,
mhm,
okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
and he wanted to give it to the number, he wanted his friend that
yeah.
took him to the game, but that's not allowed.
Mhm.
You can't, if that seat was drawn, who was sitting in that seat had to do it. And so,
Because you didn't want a ringer.
oh no,
Yeah.
no. And so,
And Ed
It-
controlled that, not us.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
No, but that makes sense. So the man came down to the floor, and this was a hard thing to do.
Oh,
These were from different angles on the floor.
Yes.
Like a half circle around the
Half
basket.
circle,
Yeah.
yes. And so
Yeah.
he shot all 5, and so here's a guy for the sabbatical, just in a random game.
yeah, yep.
Funny.
Yeah.
Did he take the car?
No, he took the money.
He took the money.
His sabbatical was over in Hawaii, and he was going back just a few days later, and of course didn't want to have to transport the car to Hawaii or store it here.
Mm-hmm.
So he took the money instead.
Yeah.
Good. So after years of doing business in Ames, was it a good choice to come from Emmitsburg?
Oh, of course.
They love
Of
Ames. They
course.
love the community.
Yeah.
Dad,
We love everything about it now.
Mhm.
It's just, Ames is a wonderful place to be.
Mother says Iowa itself is a well-kept secret.
It is.
And there are people on both coasts who will go, Iowa, now let's see. And they have to think about where it's at. And she loves that because it is a secret, a great secret.
Well, I have so enjoyed talking to both of you. Is there anything that you would like to add? Before I close the conversation, I give you a chance to say anything about your history or something that you would like to share, either about your childhood or living in Ames. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me?
Well, looking back, I guess I wouldn't have chose any other place.
It's been a
I've
wonderful life.
loved, it has. It's been, we've been here since 1970, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful place to be, and I love it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, both of you, your stories with the Ames Historical Society. It has been my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.